Olá a todos, bem-vindos então aqui mais uma vez no Congresso Nacional de Marketing, agora com Michael Leander, um marketing speaker, entre outros projetos. Vamos ter que falar inglês, por isso, Michael, hi, switching to English now. I was just saying marketing speaker, but you're much more, right?
Well, I should hope so. I think being a marketing speaker is really a stupid title. But I think what it means if you're good at it or if you have stuff to share is because you've had a lot of experience, practical experience in marketing. So I think that's what makes a good No, I didn't say I was good, but I think I say that's what makes a good marketing speaker, in my opinion. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, Michael, first question: the theme of the conference. What CMOs want from? What CEOs want from CMOs? What would you say?
I think, first of all, it's a very, very interesting theme, and it's a fantastic conference, once again put up by APPM with a lot of support from all the right people, and that's exactly why it's so good, because the CEOs showed up in a panel and started discussing, and the CMOs as well. And I think what is interesting about it is that I think the CEOs are going to become aware that they can actually demand something of their CMOs. That means CMOs have an opportunity to redefine their role, because often they're just the creative people, just the people who do the brochures, just the people who do the business cards and so on. Obviously not in very, very large corporations where they do TV advertisements and all of that, where branding is big, but in all the other businesses, I think marketing doesn't get the respect that it really deserves. So here's an opportunity for CEOs to say, aha, I can demand something more of them, and then sit down with the CMO and the C-suite group and talk about how do we define each other's roles moving forward.
Lovely. Well, that begs the question, are CMOs changing then?
I think they have to change, because technology is such an important component on what you need to be able to do to engage and to engage your audience and keep your audience engaged. So they need to change, they need to be more technology savvy, in lack of a better word, and they need to be able to manage technology as well, because technology is part of the everyday operation in any marketing outfit. So yes, they're changing. I think the current group of CMOs in Portugal and elsewhere are struggling a little bit with that change, and that's normal, I think, given the background that they have. But the new breed of CMOs coming in, who are a little bit younger and more technology savvy, will be a completely different animal, if you will, than the CMOs of the past.
Lovely. Michael, you talked a little bit about ROMI. I would like for you to explain what ROMI is. And of course, you give some 9 tips. I wouldn't say for you to give all the 9 tips, but some of them, or most important one that you would say.
Okay, so ROMI, or return on marketing investment, is one of them, and really it's more or less the same as marketing ROI, but it's about being objective driven for a CMO. It's not about ideas and campaigns and the number of activities and all of the deadlines that we're always faced with. It really is about being objective driven and understanding that if you have a €1 million budget or a €1,000 budget, the question isn't how you can spend them. The question is, how can I spend them and get a multiple back? So whether that multiple is 5 or 20 or 40, that depends on industries and so on. That's what return on marketing investment all about. And just to add to that, what it means is to know your numbers, right? So you think of yourself more as an investment, agent, than as a marketer when it comes to the money aspect.
Well, some of the tips, or the most important ones?
So I think some of the most important ones.
Beg of you, please.
Three or 4 of them. Well, one is obvious to everyone, I think, yet we forget it all the time, is to care about your audience. But today, we need to know more than just the color of their hair and their age and so on. We need to know about their preferences, we need to know about past behavior, we need to know about potential future purchases and so on. So collecting information about audience that enables you to communicate with them in a relevant way, not irrelevant to the brand, but relevant to the individual, I think is very important. As a result of that, again, is technology a necessity? So I think CMOs and businesses in Portugal, they need to embrace technology to be able to do things like customer lifecycle marketing automation. That sounds like super, super advanced. It really isn't. It just sounds really complicated. That's another thing. The third thing is social media. I mean, let's not get our hopes up too high. I've been saying this for years, and at one point people would beat me up for saying that it's not what it's hyped up to be. And I think now a lot of businesses are realizing that this whole likes syndrome that we've seen over the past 6 years is baloney for many brands, not for all brands, for many brands. So when it comes to social, it's about the engagement, right? It's not about the likes, it's not about the volume that you reach, but it's about reaching the right people in that channel as well as everywhere else, and be able to have a meaningful conversation with them in social media. I didn't say this because it was one of the tips that I took out, but the real-time aspect of this is really interesting, right? So I'd say two things. Real-time engagement with audience is very, very important, just like APPM, you guys do it on your different channels. But add to that the customer service experience as well. And I think that's merging into marketing along with that whole CIO or the technology aspect as well. So that's one more tip, and I think the last tip is this thing about culture of experimentation that many businesses don't have. So create a culture of experimentation, allow people to try stuff, and allow them to fail, and demand of them that they learn from their failures and that they somehow share that information internally as well as with agencies. And in my ideal world, any business would, let's say, allocate 10 to 15% of the budget spent on marketing as well as people's time inside the company, as well as maybe for the agency as well. At time they say this 10-15%, do with it what you want as long as you experiment. Yeah. Try new stuff. You were mentioning yourself earlier, A/B split testing. Maybe you can improve if you run an A/B split and so on. But I think also Portuguese brands, if they get that culture of experimentation going, people won't be so afraid to make that darn mistake because they think it might cost them the job, right? Yeah. And it shouldn't, because nobody has the right answer in marketing. Not the gurus, not the very, very PhD guys or whatever. No one has the answer. Everything has to be tried and tested before you know what actually works.
Michael, lovely. I would just say for you to talk a little bit about AIDEA or AIDA Lira. Was that right? AID Lira?
AID Lira or Lira or however, depending on the level of Italian. Well, AID Lira is basically taking the old AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action model, and then changing it up a little bit to fit with social media. So we remove the A from AIDA, so we get attention, interest, desire, and we add to that Lira, which is like, interaction, recommendation, and action. I would like to remove the L as well, but then it says AID IRA, and I don't think that's a good idea. But in these terrorist times, you don't want to do that. But essentially what it says is the like is irrelevant, because it takes a split second to like something. You don't even think about it, especially if they say, please like. And if you notice how many just say please like without giving a reason why we should like it. So I'm thinking the model here is good because it emphasizes the last step, which is the action. And it makes people think about, what do we want with our social media presence? Is it to get likes, really? Or is it to get something else that leads to some sort of action, whether that's monetary or not?
Michael, we've learned as well about Marketo. Can you talk about what Marketo is, and that is, well, what are you doing with it here in Portugal?
Well, it's a little bit premature actually to talk about Marketo, I think you pronounce it Portuguese, in Portugal. But essentially what we want to do is to be a knowledge-sharing entity that has a presence in Portugal. In fact, I've decided to put the headquarters here in Portugal and staff up and hopefully be able to help some people who otherwise couldn't get jobs, get some jobs, even if we have to invest in their training, because what we're doing is not rocket science. It's actually something I think most people with a sense can learn. But eventually what we want to do, when I said the Marketo will be headquartered in Portugal, is also to serve the other markets where we do training, different kinds of conferences, seminars, plus a huge program coming up for online what do we call it? On-demand training. Yeah. So we're looking at producing this also in Portuguese. I can't say too much about it, but it's on the way. And for bigger markets like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and so on, obviously in the English content. And that's pretty much all I can say right now. I know that was a politician answer, but yeah.
Well, it's something, and it's something we can hope for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Michael, thank you so much, and I hope to see you again. Por nós, até à próxima.
Por nós, está para baixo.
Perfeito, Michael. Thank you.